We say this every year, but there really was a lot of political news in 2022. There was this historic invoking of the Emergencies Act and an equally seismic team-up by the Liberals and NDP. Now, to break it all down, we've got everyone's favorite pithy pollster. He's also CTV News' pollster, chairman of Nanos Research, Nick Nanos. Nick, thank you for joining us for this top five. We don't have a lot of time for it, so let's get through it. Okay. Inflation and affordability. That's affected every Canadian in this country. How has the government been able to deal with this, or have they been able to?
Well, I think for average Canadians, they haven't done enough. The fact of the matter is that Canadians are getting crushed by higher interest rates and the rising cost of living. More than 1 out of every 4 are worried or somewhat worried about paying the rent or paying the mortgage in the next 30 days. And people are worried about the cost of food and everything. And I think this is going to be, it's not even a sleeper issue. This is going to be the issue that's going to be the lens for 2023, and people are going to be grumpy. And I think for an incumbent government, they really got to watch out that they don't lose control of this, and they're seen to be doing something.
Especially that budget that's coming up in the spring, I guess.
Yeah, and that budget, which will it be like Scrooge? I don't know, something like that.
I don't know. People are hoping that they don't get a lump of coal, right?
It's going to be tight.
Exactly. Reconciliation's our next one. When you consider what has happened this year, you had the group of Indigenous leaders going to Rome to visit with the Pope, the Pope's historic visit here and his historic apology, and then towards the end of the year, more missing and murdered Indigenous women, this time in Manitoba and the Winnipeg area. What are you watching for in the new year on this?
Well, you know, the thing is that if we rewind back to 2015, the Liberals said a lot of things that Indigenous peoples in Canada like to hear in terms of their commitment to reconciliation and putting their money where their mouth is. But when you look at the Liberal record right now, sorry, do you hear crickets? They haven't really done a lot, right? They've said a lot of the right things, and I think there's a lot of frustration. You know, we've seen young Indigenous individuals protest Justin Trudeau. I'm sure he's not too happy about that. I think this is going to be a big simmering issue because Indigenous people are frustrated. Canadians want action on reconciliation, and it looks like for a government that wants to do something, just can't move things forward.
And especially the promises, as you said, that they made in 2015, the Indigenous communities that voted for them in 2015.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, it's a key group for them, especially in some ridings out west.
Yeah. Move now to the opposition parties. A big year for both opposition parties when you consider the first one. We'll start with Jagmeet Singh, that historic supply and conference agreement with the Liberals. How have both parties been able to win or even lose from this?
Well, you know, in our tracking for the New Democrats, they've been kind of veering towards 20%, which is good. Anything with a 2 in front of it is good for Jagmeet Singh and the NDP. Plus, delivering on dental care is good. The question is, what's the next phase? What's the next thing that the NDP can try to pressure the Liberals on in order to deliver? And you know what? Mike, watch out for a controversy, a scandal in 2023. Not because I am prescient, but all governments have controversies and scandals. That could put a lot of pressure on the New Democrats if Canadians believe that they're propping up a government that is going through some turbulence.
And somebody that might take advantage of that, Pierre Poilievre, Conservative leader, won big in the Conservative leadership on the first ballot. Also looking like he's taking the party in a different direction. What do we make of this Pierre Poilievre pivot right now and where he's taking the party?
Well, it's pretty clear that he is putting his own stamp on the party. It's very populist. It's very, I'll call it very conservative. And what he's trying to do is to build his base. You know what? He's taken on the media. He's taken on the Bank of Canada. Like, why don't we just get in line on all these institutions that he has an issue with? Because he's tapping into anger and anxiety about the Federation and about how Ottawa is working. You know what? That's a very powerful message. But watch out for him in 2023 to focus on money, raising money to build up a war chest. So I think he's going to be throwing more, I won't say red meat because that's the wrong party. Why don't we say blue meat?
Right.
Real blue meat in order to motivate donors to build the war chest that the Conservatives will need to challenge the Liberals.
Some of the donors that he might go after, maybe some of the same people were in that so-called Freedom Convoy. That was certainly a big issue that we saw this past year. I wanted to ask you going forward, though, how does this government deal with it? But also, how does this country deal with that sentiment that is still simmering out there?
Well, you know, whether you love or hate it, the convoy, the Freedom Convoy, from the perspective of the protesters, was a success. They disrupted the country, they disrupted the government, they disrupted people's lives in order to advance an agenda that they supported. And you know what? The tail on that is still kind of moving forward. So Pierre Poilievre has been able to tap into that. But you know, the thing is that it's changed the narrative in the country, because now that there are people who didn't necessarily vote in the past that are engaged and they're looking at Pierre Poilievre as that vehicle to punish Ottawa.
And somehow we squeezed it all into this little amount of time. CTV News pollster Nick Nanos, thank you so much for joining us. I also wanted to say to you, Kales Diakopez.
Oh, Efkaristo Parapoli.
I have no idea
That
what
means
he's...
thank you a lot.
But I said happy holidays to him, and happy holidays to all of you as well. CTV News Channel.